It is almost Valentine's Day, which is not a holiday in our religious tradition particularly. And I always acknowledge it, though, even with some mixed feelings I have about it. Because like almost every holiday now, it has become wrapped up in commercial trappings in our culture to a point where it kind of gives me an ick, you know? The sheer amount of commercials and signs and little cupids flying around. But in our house, we have our own little, essentially non-commercial tradition. One year, a number of years ago, our babysitter fell through. So Kristen instead sort of whipped something together, as she does. She's a fabulous cook, and made a fondue meal for our whole family, for the two of us and our boys. We have cheese fondue for a sort of dinner, and then chocolate fondue for dessert, and it's great. It became an instant classic. Now the boys talk about it months ahead of time. They are so excited for it every year. So that's our Valentine's Day thing. I hope you have your own. But back to the day for a minute, because I do like the idea of celebrating love, right? Of course I do. That's great. As we've lifted up here already in the service, we are a lot about love here. But, and there's always a but, isn't there? As I preached here a year ago, I want to talk about love in a much more expansive kind of love than the one that greeting cards or flower companies would have us celebrate. So love is a feeling, of course, specifically a feeling of deep affection or a great interest or pleasure in something or someone. That's the meaning we usually mean when we talk about love. The sort of butterflies in your stomach or warm feeling in your heart or cartoon hearts flying around your head in a circle, that sort of thing. And I do think that's wonderful. I'm for that. But it makes me think too. I already mentioned my wife Kristen, who, as many of you know, is also a Unitarian Universalist minister. And she says sort of the same thing, more or less. She mixes it up a little, but at every wedding that she officiates. And I really love it, which is why I'm stealing it today. She encourages couples getting married to practice love, not merely feel it. Because wedding stuff aside, it's hopefully you are feeling loving on your wedding day. The idea being that it's easy to feel love, especially on a wedding day, with the person you are presumably and hopefully very much in love with at that moment. But the feeling of love is not one that automatically stays around forever. There are moments in any relationship, indeed, in which it is hard to feel love for your partner. 15 years into marriage, I know that to be true. But if instead you think of love as a practice, of something you have to work at, as something you need to exercise in order to make stronger, that's a very different way to think about it. Because then on those days when you are not feeling loving, you can still practice love. You can go through the routine of being loving. It takes effort and it takes consistency, but it yields real and positive results. You can be loving even when on those hopefully rare occasions when you are not feeling loving, you can still be loving. So Kristen says this to couples getting married, but I think it applies to just about every relationship in our lives. For example, to take it down a notch or two, I think that my neighbors maybe don't love me, but at least like me. Love might be too strong a word. But I know that on the third day after the recycling and trash have been picked up, and neither I nor my children, by the way, it's the children's responsibility. I want to be really clear about that. But none of us have pulled in the bins from the street. I wouldn't blame my neighbors for feeling a little unhappy about it. I hope that's the biggest grievance any of them have against me, but I'm not certain of that either. But I hope that the goodwill I have built up with them, the loving that we have done, has, made them be forgiving when something like that happens. Now, I am still working on this one and intend to do so for the rest of my life probably, but I have some real work to do to practice love about some people whom I deeply disagree with, including a lot of our current national leaders. And I just want to be clear, I don't think that you have to love everyone, especially those who are doing you harm. That's not what we preach here. But there is a power in remembering even awful people, people who are doing you harm, are still human, even while you are angry or disappointed. So we have love as a feeling and love as a practice I've talked about. Love the practice. I want to talk about how you do that. How do you work to strengthen that within you? One way that I like to do is what we used to call, in the 90s at least, practicing random acts of kindness. I don't have to even be that random, but take time to do things for people that, not just that you know and like, but people you may not know or may not like that much, just as a way of showing love to them and helping ourselves practice love. I was encouraging my middle child, for instance, to not pick the easiest or quickest chore every time he has an option, but perhaps do a little above and beyond so that it's nice to other people in the house. I don't think that one's sunk in yet, but I'm working on it. So that's one way to do that. But love is more even than a feeling and a practice, because love is also the fabric that connects all of us, that weaves us together into a community, even into community across the world with people who are vastly different than us, who may not agree with us on anything. Sometimes love looks like passion, sometimes it looks like friendship, and sometimes it looks like just the empathy that allows us to connect with another human being, despite the differences between us, or despite how little we know about them. So when we as Unitarian Universalists say that love is at the center of all we do, this is what we mean. That love is not merely a feeling which comes and goes and is mostly saved for those we already know and feel affection for. That love is not merely a practice we undertake to be more loving, to show others the power of love, and that love is not merely a connecting force for all humanity, but rather it's all of these, and probably far more things that I haven't yet had time to explore or embrace. So when I say today that love is in the air, I mean it is so inescapable and so crucial to our lives that it is just like the air we breathe. We need it. And sometimes we know it only by its absence. When we fail to be loving, when others fail to be loving to us, that's the time for us to recommit once again to putting love at the center. So have a wonderful Super Bowl day. Have a wonderful Valentine's Day, however you choose to practice either one of those holy days. The world always needs more love, friends, and we can be a part of making that come true. May it be so.